Hello, welcome to the 23rd webinar in 12D's training webinar series. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at 12D Solutions. 12D's training webinars showcase common industry challenges, taking a close look at industry best practices and how these can be implemented using 12D model software. The aim of these webinars is to upskill 12D model users and broaden their understanding of the capabilities of 12D model. We run these webinars regularly and record them for posting through our website and on YouTube. The first 22 webinars from this training series, as well as the first 24 webinars from our Industry Solutions series, are available on our YouTube channels if you missed those. While we wait for everyone to finish joining, I'll pop up a polling question. You'll have about 30 seconds to answer about whether you ever plot drawings with title blocks direct from 12D to PDF, and then I'll show the results. Okay, so we've got quite a mix of attendees today. I'm sure most of us will get a lot out of the webinar. Let's get started. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way, as shown on the screen, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the webinar. At the end, I'll also read out some of your questions to the presenter for his insights if there's time. Today's webinar on title block variables and the drawing register from PPF editors will be presented by Owen Thornton, who has been writing software for 12D Solutions since 2003. Owen is the original author of the 12D Drainage Network Editor and the Drainage Analysis module, and is a 12D specialist in drainage, utilities, plot parameter files, volumetrics, and system setup. Owen runs regular 12D training courses in drainage design, customization, and macro writing, as well as assisting with customer support. This webinar will demonstrate the use of title block files and the drawing register for drawing production with plot parameter files wholly within 12D model. Over to you, Owen.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to show a potentially complicated webinar on how to interrelate three different kinds of files to produce drawings with title blocks that have information extracted from drawing registers. A lot of people use drawing registers in Excel, for instance, which keep a record of information about every individual drawing on a drawing set, and we can access that information to automatically populate information in each cell of a title block on each sheet. The examples I'm going to show in this webinar are all based on data that's currently installed with 12D model in the library. We'll see here there's three main files that we're dealing with. A plot parameter file, in this case it's a long section plot parameter file installed in the library. This is installed with either version 11 or version 12, you could use either. There is also a title block file, and here's one of our standard title blocks for an A1 sheet. And there is another one also installed in the library, an example drawing register in Excel format. Okay, so the first thing to note on the plot parameter file editor is on the title block branch here, we must tick on this use title file tick box so that 12D will go looking on the user title info branch for the title block file. Otherwise, they'll be using a standard title which doesn't have nearly the same level of customization. Okay, so it's really just this title block branch in the PPF editor that we're concerned with, and within that, the user title info where we can set the TBF, and the drawing register branch where we can set the drawing register file and specifically what worksheet on that Excel file the data is on. And these two words here, plot file and $plot file, this is important and really the key to making it all work. We'll cover this in detail in a second, but in short, this $plot file word here is a title block variable that's generated by 12D every time it creates or produces a new drawing sheet. and that is used as the key. The value of this variable is used as the key to go looking in the drawing register, and it will look for a column in the drawing register with a header called capital letters plot space file. Okay, and if it finds the name of the plot file from this variable in the column in the title block file, then anything else on that row will be accessible from the drawing register to be put into your title block. I will go into more detail about what all this stuff is on the user title block parameters branch of the PPF editor, but here we can use a combination of user title block variables and drawing register variables so that we can use a title block file that makes no reference to the drawing register. In this particular example with this PPF, the PPF links to both the title block file and the drawing register file, but the title block file knows nothing of the drawing register, which means the title block file is universal and can be used with or without a drawing register. And if you weren't using a drawing register, rather than using these drawing register variables, you could just type in values for, say, the main title and the subtitle and the drawing numbers and so forth. And that would be a more manual approach, I guess. Before we go any further, though, I'd like to make an important point. Most people these days are running 64-bit 12D model, yet still have a 32-bit installation of Office and therefore Excel. Because of that, and in order to get 12D to be able to access and read an Excel file, you may need to install this 64-bit Microsoft Access Database Engine 2010 redistributable. And here is the website, the Microsoft website from where you can download it. There is a bit of a catch here, is by default, Microsoft seems to want to prevent concurrent installations of 32-bit and 64-bit Office components. You can't have them both installed side by side by default. So when you install this engine, the 64-bit engine, you generally need to run it with this passive flag from the command line in order to get things to work correctly. Now, there are potentially some complications there depending on the precise version of Windows and what service pack you have and all of that sort of thing. But the latest information that we're acquiring is that most people are getting this to work fine just by simply following these steps, and no other steps need to be taken. So hopefully it should be that easy. If you're simply using 32-bit 12D model with 32-bit Office, there should be no problems. Likewise, if you, I don't even know, I assume that there's a 64-bit version of Office, but I don't know anyone who's actually using it. Again, you should have no problems with 64-bit 12D and 64-bit Office. It's only when there's a difference between 12D and Office in terms of the bitwise compatibility that you may encounter this issue. Right, with that out of the way, we should probably talk about first how we read and write title block files, because these title block files are just a file which is referred to in the plot parameter file when we generate a plot, and it contains all of the details of the title block that we wish to plot. So there are two simple options in 12D available from the plotting setups menu. There's read title block file here, highlighted in green, and create edit title block file highlighted in red. Okay, so to get started, you can either just draw up a title block from scratch or read one in from somewhere else. Whether it's a title block file or a 12D ASCII archive file or a DWG file, you might have an existing title block that you wish to create as a title block file in 12D, a TBF file. Whatever you can create in your model, and here we show a plan view showing a typical title block, a very simple one, but a good example title block. we can convert that into a title block file that can be used with plot parameter files. So you can either create one from scratch or read an existing title block file, and we ship a few in the library that you can use as a starting point to get you started. And as soon as we do that, the model that we create is in paper space. So the units are in millimeters, and 00 is the bottom left-hand corner of the sheet. Okay, so you can go to town and do whatever you like with the line work and images. You don't have to have our retro style logo here. You can put your own logo in as a JPEG or some other image file. You can do whatever you like with the text. And then when you're happy with it, you can create, by specifying the model that contains the title block information, you can create a new title block file with the right button on this panel. And there's optional parameters here that you can that are stored both in the title block file and also stored as model attributes that are useful for when you're using plot frames with a title block file. Because when you're doing plot frame plotting, you can specify a title block file and it will automatically set the sheet size and the margins, etc., for your plot frame. So the trick there, if you want those to come through, is when you specify your model here, hit enter in the model box, and these, if the attributes are already set in the model, will be automatically populated for you, and once you hit the right button, they will be saved in your new title block file, ready to use in a plot parameter file. I could go and demonstrate that live, but I don't think there's a great need to. It's pretty straightforward. You just fill in the panels as we see here, hit the read button to read in this title block file into the model called TDF, say, which is just a model name that I've come up with for title block file. Then you can modify whatever you like in this, and we'll have a closer look a little bit later at the detail here that you can't quite read down the bottom. And then once you're happy with it, you specify the model on this panel, specify any plot frame parameters, and write out a new title block file. Looking in more detail at the bottom of the title block model, we can see it's there's a little bit of line work and our retro 12D logo in our standard title block file in the library. The rest of it is text, and it's mainly the text that's the important stuff as far as talking about title block variables and linking up to drawing registers. Okay, so again, as I said, you can go to town and do whatever line work and styling you like in paper space, with 00 being the bottom left, and the units in millimeters. What we're looking for then is any text that contains words that begin with a $sign. And these are all the title block variables, otherwise known as TBVs. And these are all able to be substituted with specific information for each drawing sheet, because each sheet will have a title and a scale and drawing numbers and sheet numbers and start chainages and end chainages. You know, there'll be a designer potentially and perhaps a revision number. So all of these little bits of information, like the name of the working folder, the name of the 12D project, the name of the plot file generated, that's the most important one really, that $plot file, and the time and date it was plotted, and all of these other ones, which we'll talk about in due course, including these project detail ones. Now, when you start up 12D, a new project, you can fill in some project details and you can modify them at any time. All of that information can appear here too. So if you specify the title of your job in the project details, you can put it in a title block simply by placing a piece of text in your title block model at this location and writing the whole thing away to a title block file. So what are the title block variables in detail? Well, if you really want the details, I can thoroughly recommend the 12D reference manual. And here is what it looks like in PDF format, which is our new help format and the reference manual format as well, PDF. And I've opened it up here to the specific page and chapter where it details everything there is to know about title block variables. So that goes on for a few pages. I won't go through it in gory detail, but on the right-hand side here, I've listed the most common ones. This is not the complete list. There are a few more, but these are the ones that get used most of the time. So most of these ones are inbuilt title block variables that each time a sheet is generated by 12D, these variables are automatically given values that can be substituted into a title block. Nothing to do with the drawing register for most of these things. They just automatically happen. And you could place the text $start chainage or $vertical scale or $folder anywhere in your title block file or title block model, and the values will be substituted at plot time in the style of the text and the color of the text that's shown in the title block model or the title block file. Okay, there's a few special ones to note though. Project detail star. Now the star there is to represent the name of the specific project detail. Let me just show you what that means in 12D. If I swap over to 12D now, under project details, you're probably all familiar with this panel that pops up when you first create a new project. Well, I've filled in a couple of things here. The project number is just a dummy project number. The name of this project, which I've called subdivision, and my initials there as the designer. In terms of how to get this into a drawing sheet, it's actually the name of these project details. Now these are all set as project attributes. You can figure out what the name is by going to Project Management Details Editor, and you can see, for example, the project number has a name, project number. The job title 1 has the name job title 1. The designer has the name designer. What that means is when we specify these project details as title block variables, we start off with the keyword $project underscore detail underscore, and then the name of the specific project detail as I just showed you. So that's how we can get the project detail straight into our title blocks. All of these ones here are standard ones or built-in ones. The last two, though, are in bold, the user text and drawing register variables. These are somewhat special, and you can define these yourself. And I'll show you what the difference is between user text. You can define up to 1,000. The N is a number between 1 and 1,000. You can define up to 1,000 different user text variables and associate them with a name that you're going to recognize in the plot parameter file, because that name will can be used to populate the grid in the plot parameter file. And the drawing register, these can be used both directly in the title block file, or they can be specified as the values of the user variables. And I'll show what that means in detail in just a second. In this case, in the user text example, you need the angle bracket and a number and a comma and a closing curly bracket, and the star here is the name that you want to the value to appear with, or the name of the variable that you want to see in the plot parameter file. It's not the value, it's the name of the variable. And in this case, in the case of the drawing register, the star here, including the angle brackets, but the star is the name of the header row in a column in your drawing register. We'll have a look at what the drawing register looks like in just a second, but this is pretty much a fairly thorough list of the title block variables that you'll typically use to get your title blocks completed. Here we have an example of a typical Excel drawing register for use with 12D. You can have any number of worksheets in your drawing register, and this doesn't have to be living in a 12D area in a working folder. It could be anywhere you like. It might not even be developed and edited by a 12D user. It could be done by a drafting manager or a project manager. And here we can list all of the details of potentially every drawing sheet in a drawing set. You could do your complete drawing set for a whole job in this one file, and multiple 12D projects can access it. And potentially other things outside of 12D, if you're using other packages as well, could potentially access this as well. As far as the data that 12D uses, it must be contained on a single worksheet. So even if you have other worksheets in here, like in this case sheet 2 and sheet 3, all of the information we're going to use is specified on sheet 1. So you can derive certain columns from other columns on other sheets if you like, but you want to build up a nice contiguous table like this, where there's no blank rows in the middle of the table, and the first row must be a header row. And these header rows are all important in terms of 12D looking things up. This plot file column is perhaps the most important. It doesn't have to be called plot file, but whatever you do call it, that must be listed that way in the plot parameter file to associate it with the title block variable plot file, $plot file, which we looked at before. So this is the name of all of the potential plot files that can be looked up, or plot sheets that can be looked up by 12D in the register. And in our case, we're only going to generate the first 2 sheets here in the example I'm going to show today. So it's going to be 2 files called plot LSRSO1001 for sheet 1, and plot long section RSO1, that's the name of the alignment string, and sheet 2. Okay, so it's going to be a long section plot of a single alignment that's broken up into 2 sheets. As long as 12D can find the valid plot file name and it doesn't have an extension, whether it's, so you could be using this to plot to model or to DWG or to PDF or whatever. You don't include the extension in the plot file name there, it's just the main part of the file name. As soon as you can find that key, then let's say if it finds it on row 2 here, or the first row of the data, any other value on this row can be accessed and placed into the title block. Okay, so it's up to you how whatever data you want to put on there. And in this particular example, for instance, you don't have to have all of these extra columns at the beginning. I've built this up independently of 12D, and I've built up the list of plot file names that I'm going to produce or get 12D to produce by building up these components and appending them together with underscores. And this is the kind of plot file name that you can produce straight out of 12D. So it's important to try and match that up. Other than that, as soon as it finds a match, anything else on the rows is up to you to create. And you can do things like, because plot parameter files could just be one small component of a larger drawing set, doing things like sheet numbering is quite difficult from within an individual PPF. So you may be better off defining it in a drawing register and getting all your sheet numbering in whatever scheme you wish to work out, sorted out in the drawing register, because multiple PPFs are going to be used on this single table here, and it's much easier to do it in one spot rather than coordinate lots of different individual PPFs. Likewise, drawing numbers are often easier to assign from a drawing register, and revision numbers can be done easily as well. So we can change any of these. Now this example file is installed in the library, and we're going to have a look at it in just a second. But the important thing is this plot file column there. It's got to have a header row on row 1, and there should be no blank rows in the middle of the data there. The first blank row that it encounters indicates the end of the table as far as 12D is concerned. So here's a very complicated graphic explaining how, in the example I'm just about to show you, how it all fits together and how the plot parameter file is linked to the title block file and the drawing register, and it all works together to get 6 individual bits of information off the drawing register into your title block. So here I've got 3 different copies of the longplot PPF editor open. It's all the same file, but I'm highlighting different branches. Here's the main page of the PPF editor, in this case the long section PPF editor, but it's the same no matter what PPF editor you use. The title block branch is the same. This is showing the user title info branch where we refer to the title block file. And here is the drawing register branch where we refer to the drawing register file and the particular worksheet that the data resides on in Excel. And this is the all-important name of the plot file column there. So that has to match this for the lookup to work. And we're using the key here, the title block variable $plot file, which is generally going to be unique. Arguably, you could use other variables instead of $plot file, but this is the one we think is the best one to use, at least for plot parameter files. And so the value of $plot file, or the name of the plot file, is generated from the main page of the PPF editor based on the plot file stem and how many digits you have in the plot file number. So these will be combined together to come up with a plot file name like this. It will also be plotted in your title block with the text $plot file there. That will be substituted there, so we'll see this value down here. And because we've linked the value of $plot file to the column name called plot file, it will go looking for this value in this column. As soon as it finds it, say on this case on the first row of data, then any other value on this row we can access. And we access it, we're interested in 6 particular columns, the ones highlighted in green here, and we can access them from this branch, the user title info branch. And you see here the name column is highlighting the names we specified in the title block file for the different user text variables. So here's our main title here, and it shows up as main title on row 1. Here's our subtitle 1 and subtitle 2 on rows 2 and 3. Here's our drawing number over on the right-hand side, down the bottom, as user text 4, there it is, and the sheet, and here we're using the sheet, the complicated sheet numbers 1 of 7, 2 of 7, etc., which are difficult to do via the plot parameter files, but easy to set up in a spreadsheet. And lastly, the revision. So these 6 columns in the drawing register are what we can extract via setting up the user title variable values this way. So we're setting the value here rather than just typing in a title and a subtitle and so forth. We're using this special syntax for the drawing register title block variables, $drawing_register, open angle bracket, name of column, close angle bracket. So inside the angle brackets there, these are the names on the header rows to go looking for the matching row that it's found. Okay, so we can pull out all of this information there, and it will be substituted in the location of the dollar variables or the title block variables that we've got in our title block file. Now this drawing register variables, these are unique amongst title block variables in that they can be specified either directly in the title block file. So we could, instead of putting these user variables in, we could just say $drawing_register and then the drawing number. In that syntax here, we could place that there instead. That's placing it directly in the title block file means you have to use a drawing register with that title block file. Doing it the way we're doing it though, our title block file is generic. It doesn't require use of a title block or a drawing register, I should say. It can be used with or without a drawing register. And it's arguably more flexible to do it this way and specify the drawing register variables in the PPF file, keeping it all nicely self-contained. So in this example, our title block file knows nothing about the drawing register. We make the association between the two in the plot parameter file here. Okay, there's a whole lot of lines on the screen here, and hopefully it might make sense if you take a moment to have a close look at it. But if it is at all confusing, I think it probably might be best if I show a live demo of this as well. So onto 12D, and here I have a project set up where this is the line RS01 on my long section view here, and I'm profiling the line in red and the survey is showing up in green. And above it I have a plan view set up because I also want to plot a plan component in my long section. So I have a long section and plan, pretty much like what we see here with these two sheets. So I'll start off with the plot menu and go to my plot and PPF editors long sections. And I'll browse to my library, click on the folder icon there, browse to the library, and there's a whole bunch of different ones installed with 12D in version 11 and version 12. The one I'm going to use is just called longsection.lplotppf, and read that into the editor. And that's pretty much populated the PPF perfectly for the way I want to use it. However, there's normally a few things you may want to customize whenever you load in a PPF from a library or a user library. So you almost always want to save it locally with your projects. And the easiest way to do that is to simply get rid of that $lib / and might want to append a suffix on it. I've actually already done that. So I've already got a file in my project called longsection_RS01. So it's a PPF specifically for plotting RS01. So I'm going to choose that one and read it in. And I've already gone ahead, just to save a bit of time, I've made a few little differences to this. Not really to the title block branch though. The main changes I've made are on the plot to models branch. And I'll just open that out a little bit so we can see a bit more. I've added, for plotting to models, I've added the ability to translate and merge the plot models. So for multiple sheets, they'll be translated into an array and merged into a single model there, simply by setting the parameters like so. The other thing I've done is down on the plan plotting branch here, I've told 12D to also plot the view plan road, which is this plan view up here that we see here, and show that above the long section. So you can set up a margin and a border for that plan component on the long section sheet just by specifying a view there. But let's have a look at the title block branch now. Again, the important thing to note is on the title block, main title block branch, you tick on this use title file. Without that ticked on, the rest becomes a little bit meaningless. Moving on to the user title info branch, I've specified my title block file straight out of the library. You could load it from your user library for your own title block file, or you might have a specific one for your project in your working folder or wherever you load it from. As soon as you specify that, it will go looking for any user text variables that are defined in there and populate this grid for you based on the names you've assigned to each of your user text variables. And then you can go on and give those user variables values. And in this case, I've given them the values of these drawing register variables. And that means that 12D will go looking in the drawing register for these columns to get the information for these user text variables. So to set up the drawing register, it's exactly as we've already seen. Actually, before I do that, I'll mention the time format there. There is a variable that we're using in our title block file called $time, and that will show the date and time of the plot. And I like this particular format here. I won't go into all possible combinations of the date and time format there, but that's a particularly good one. And if you have a look in the library PPF, all of our time formats are set with this format. So if you like it, you can borrow it and copy it into your PPFs. So again, I'm trying to show this with examples straight out of the library so that you don't need to scramble and find data or try and copy what I've done in this webinar. You can go to 12D yourself and find it in your own library because the same files will be at your end in your installation of 12D. Okay, moving on to the drawing register branch now. Now I did originally have my drawing register specified from the library, but I ended up modifying my drawing register a little bit, only a little bit, and I instead I'm using a local register that's sitting in my working folder. Now there is a trick here. There is one little issue that we've encountered, and it's related to the drivers we have for reading Excel files, and it's only for the Excel file, not the PPF or the title block file. If your drawing register file is sitting in the working folder like mine is, we need to tell 12D that the working folder is specified with a dot and a backslash like so. So you can't just have the name of the file there, it needs to have that dot and backslash for it to work correctly. If we were to open that up, and I'll just click open there, Excel will open up, and here's my drawing register here, and it looks almost identical to the one we saw before. It's just a slight difference. But looking at my plot down here that I've already produced before, I can see that they've both got revision B showing up from the drawing register. So just by way of demonstration, I will change something in the drawing register by saying I might update these two sheets, which are the only two sheets I'm producing with this PPF, with revision C and revision C, like so. I'm not going to mess with the drawing numbers or anything else. I'll just save that file. This is the one that's local in my working folder. And again, exactly as I explained before, we set the name in this grid to plot space file because that's the name of the column in the drawing register. Plot file must match plot file here for this column. And this column could be anywhere in the table, doesn't have to be the first column, it just needs to be somewhere in there. And we associate the name of that column with the title block variable, the automatic title block variable $plot file, which is generated for each sheet by 12D when it does the plotting. Okay, I may also mention on the symbols branch, now technically the symbols here aren't related to the title block, and we may be looking to move this symbols branch outside of the title block because they don't necessarily relate to the title block, but I've added a north symbol and a scale bar to my plot here, and we'll see a north symbol appear on the sheet down here and a scale bar appear down here in this part of the plot. Okay. Other than that, I don't think I've modified this PPF from what it was on the library, as we read it in from the library, much at all. Just those handful of changes. I'm plotting at a scale of 1 to 500, and I'd set my plan view here, which I'm also plotting with a plotting scale to match that, 1 to 500, so that all my paper text elements, all these labels show up at the scale I want them to. Or at least I can visually see that this view will match what I see on the drawing. And all I really need to do now is come and plot them. Okay, so this is this plot model that's produced. It's only a single plot model, plot LS RS01001, because the two sheets here are merged into the one plot model, and they're translated like so. And on my plot to models branch, I've set the clean plot models beforehand to always clean. So it will clean out whatever is here beforehand and reproduce the new sheets. And I should see the new revision once I do that. So just checking that everything is so, I can plot to model and go ahead and hit the plot button. It goes and cleans out the plot view there. And if I were to zoom in, and I'll try not to zoom in with the wheelie mouse there. I'll zoom right in to there, and I see, lo and behold, my revision on my drawing has changed to C, and there's the plot time, exactly 1:40, which is, and with today's date, showing me that I've just plotted that with a new revision there, and that has come from the drawing register. So you can see, hopefully with this webinar, how everything fits together. Of course, once you're happy with your plot and plotting to model, and I always recommend you plot to model first while you're getting everything the way you like it. You often have to tinker with certain things to make everything fit. For instance, I had adjusted the boundary of this plan component because I've got a fairly steep road there at 10 times exaggeration, and I had to make my boundary just a wee bit smaller from memory, and I also adjusted the datum round off value to get the low part of the graph as close as I could to my datum line, the dashed line we see there. And you frequently have to do a few little tweaks here and there to get a specific PPF looking just so. And that's why you tend to save each plot parameter file locally with your project, because they're quite specific to that project and that particular road, especially the long section ones. Okay, but I could, once I'm happy plotting to model, I could swap this over now and say, let's plot straight to PDF now. I'll change from my plotter type box. I'll open up the PDF branch. This is a full scale plot. It's an A1 sheet, so I'll use the full scale plotters, and I'll go with a PDF color and just go ahead and hit the plot button now. And after a couple of seconds, I should get a PDF opening up with both my sheets. Now I've got a new version of Adobe Acrobat Reader that puts the different sheets on tabs here, and I can see sheet 1, and it's all been mapped into grayscale and black and white colors apart from the logo there. The color plotter, the PDF plotter color, only plots in color for the standard 12D colors like we've used in our logo here. All the other colors we'd use were various grayscale things or various plot parameter file colors for the text and things like that get mapped to a black pen or some kind of grayscale pen. So the drafting standard is actually pretty good there. If you zoom right in, I mean, we're in a long section, I probably shouldn't focus on the plan, but the plan's going to look as good as how you set up your view. I've put white out on the alignment labels and so forth. The mapping of the two surfaces, the design surface and the survey surface, is all controlled through the map file if you use our standard PPF colors, and it all looks pretty good. The scale bar and the north symbol are coming out scaled correctly, and all the same details from the drawing register are showing up in the PDF just like they did in the plot model. So there's a quick example of how to use the drawing register and the title block file with your plot parameter files to produce drawings straight to PDF and potentially produce an entire drawing set straight out of 12D model. I will probably now open the webinar up to any particular questions that might have been asked while I've been talking, because that's all I have to show for now.
Great, thanks, Owen. We've got time to take a couple of live questions. So John in Sydney has asked, are there any other options apart from Excel drawing registers?
Yes, as I noted before with that 64 and 32-bit thing, a lot of people have sort of balked when they've encountered this issue and not known how to solve it. And indeed, because it is a Microsoft problem, I might say, and we're having to work around it. If I just go back to that particular slide that mentioned it, this one here, ideally, we might have to look at an alternative arrangement, because Microsoft show no real signs of making it this problem go away easily, and for people that don't want to have to do this step, or for whom, for whatever reason, particular complications with a Windows installation, this might not work, then using 64-bit 12D model with 32-bit Excel is going to be difficult. So there are potentially alternatives that we're looking at. It might be as simple as accessing a CSV file directly, which means you're not coupled to Excel at all. You could use anything that can produce a CSV file, or and it's speculation at this point. I don't know if the code has been factored or worked out yet, but we could potentially access, rather than using this access database engine, we could potentially access, in theory, the XML data that a Excel file now is, an Excel SX. So we could potentially access the data in the spreadsheet via that route, rather than relying on this access database engine, which has this bitwise problem. For now, though, Excel is possibly the only way, and I hope that this tip here, or this procedure, will solve the problem of using 64-bit with 32-bit Excel.
Thanks, Owen. We'll just do one more for now. Alex in Queensland said, does this also work using the new multi-page plot sheet in 12D Model 12?
Yes, it does. There's a couple of caveats I'll add to that, though, and it's a little bit of a moving target. We've had a few early adopters of the multi-page plot sheet, which is hard to say. I'll call it MPS. And look, it's fantastic, and a lot of people are starting to build up entire drawing sets using it. One thing that's been figured out early on, though, is that it doesn't currently produce, for each sheet, the title block variable, and so instead, for the moment at least, we may fix this for the next version of 12D, version 14. For now, instead of using $plot file as the key to look up the register, people are using the other one, $page number, and setting the start page number in each PPF, or each title block, or each title for each sheet in the MPS, and looking it up that way. So if I look at the list of title block variables, we have this $page number that we use instead of $plot file, which can be set in the user title info as the start page number, and then that can be looked up. Instead of a plot file column here, we'd have a page number column, and there'd be some integer index that would be ideally unique so that we can look it up and access the rows that way. So there may be a slightly better and more convenient way of doing that in future versions of 12D. The MPS function is fairly new, and we're still ironing out some of the niceties there to make it a really smooth experience. But it is going to be pretty powerful once that's all matured.
Thank you. I think we'll leave it there for questions for today. Sorry to those we couldn't get to live. We'll answer you by email soon. The recording of this webinar will be available in coming days through our website and our YouTube channel. Our next two training webinars are Components on the 10th of May and Using the Apply function for non-road features on the 24th of May. So do keep an eye on our website for details of those, as well as our upcoming industry solutions topics. We'll also continue to keep you posted through email and social media. If you need to contact us in the meantime, our details are on the screen now. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.